Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the day again, and we are here on African Loudest Debate. The young man that all of you wanted to see on your screen, he's right here. Never disappointed us. He said he will be here despite the fact that he is so busy. He made time to be here with us. Tafari, we are so much grateful that you squeeze time out of your tight schedule to be here with us. So let us put our hands together as we welcome Tafari. And another guest that we have on the show, Ethan is a very busy person. Sometimes I'm a little bit scared to invite him to some of the things, but then he gave me the call himself. He said, "Man, I want to be on this show." I don't know whether he was coming to have a conversation with Tafari because I don't know. But then Ethan is also here. Ethan is the founder of Arise TV, a young man that is doing a lot for young people on African continent. We do not take it lightly having you here, Ethan. Thank you very much for coming, brother. Yeah. I tried to press the clap. He gave me the call himself. He said, "Man, I want to be on this show." I don't know whether he was coming to. Okay. Let's continue with the show. And my brother Ajamu, my brother in the struggle, he is my brother from another mother. We co-host this show together. And from the one that we started this show, we have never taken a day off. No matter what it is, when we say we are here, we are always here. So even today, we are here. And it is privileged that I have this great man, and all the way from United States of America, brother Ajamu. Brother Ajamu, thank you very much for joining us. So, brother Ajamu, I would love you to introduce Mr. Tafari to the rest of us.
All right. So, from what I gathered, Tafari Mugari is the chairman of the African People's Party, People's Party. Is that right? African? Yeah. That's right. In Occupy Tanzania.
The African People's Party. Right. Thank you.
Yeah, in
Right.
Occupy Tanzania, which I've said numerous times. I don't use South Africa. I use Tanzania. It's only proper. He had also since 2020 been the director of the organization of the African Socialist International, African region. The African Social International is the African People's Socialist Party expressed internationally. The party was founded in 1972 by Chairman Omali Yestatela, who is also responsible for the development of the political theory of African internationalism, which guides the party and the thinking of its members. Tafari has led the building of 4 branches of the party's mass organization in 2 provinces in Tanzania, and has also established the party's presence in East Africa as well as West Africa, where the party is also growing. So welcome, brother.
Thank you, brother Jam.
Yeah, I went. I just real quick. I went to.
It's a bit sketchy. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say it's a bit sketchy on my end. So sometimes I kind of get a delay and my clash with you talking. So pardon me with that.
No problem. Real quick, Tafari, I went to the website today. It's ironic. I'm in Orlando, Florida. The headquarters of the African People's Party is actually in St. Petersburg. So soon as my school gets done, because I'm actually a school teacher, so it's going to end pretty soon. I'm going to make a trip down to the headquarters and see what it's all about. I did make a donation, by the way. I made it's a continual donation. I love the way it was set up, because you got to go in there, press the button, and then you can't just make one donation. You got to make it continuously, which makes sense. So I was like, wow, That's deep. That I like that. I like that. So I went ahead and did that. Got my receipt. I'm good. I'm pretty sure they're gonna contact me pretty soon. So I appreciate you reaching out, coming on TLAD, and so forth. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Mafrika. Yeah, I appreciate that, because it just speaks to like the fact that African people, wherever we are, we desire to be free. So if you see other people doing something that is aligned with that, the mission for African people to be free, you are encouraged you want to support, you want to see that succeed, because ultimately that's what we want, all of us. So I appreciate that a lot.
No problem.
Hmm. Right. So, am I supposed to introduce myself, or because I didn't hear the
I mean,
question,
yeah,
if
you
there was a
can.
question?
No, not yet.
Right. So,
Go ahead.
all right. Thank you. Yeah. No, I just want to say that I am a member of a revolutionary movement, a party, actually, as a matter of fact. So, I'm here to represent the party everywhere I go, even when I use my personal Facebook. I just want to articulate the political theory, the line of the party, because we believe that there is no African revolution without a revolutionary party that actually has the responsibility for planning out, for always being engaged with the ever changing world, political scene and so forth. The masses of the people are always preoccupied with one thing or another. They're trying to make ends meet and so forth. So we become that advanced detachment, of the people, of the masses of the people that has the responsibility to have meetings on a weekly basis, to write plans of action, to observe the political events that are happening in the world, and see how best can we organize ourselves, where can we coordinate ourselves, how do we advance the African revolution. So I am part of that. I'm here in South Africa, occupied Azania. I was born here, and so we consider ourselves to be the Azania front of the international African revolution, because Africans, wherever we are one nation. We are a dispersed nation, like forcibly dispersed by the imperialists, by the Europeans and so forth. So we fighting to reclaim, that like ourselves, and that's why we are here. Thank you. Mm-mm.
How about now?
Well, I couldn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So I think you got the topic of the day, which is we are speaking about unity, and you just spoke something very profound. You say we are one nation that has been forcefully displaced by colonial masters or whatsoever. Now, but
Mm.
if we look at the internal Africa, have you ever considered the fact that the black hate, the black on black hate, is so intense that you can unequivocally compare it with the hate that our colonial masters once has towards us? Will you agree that something is happening like that among the black race?
Mm. I think more than the hate, or of course, hate is just a feeling, and feelings are just they're subjective, but then the subjective is always dependent on the objective. So what is the objective reality that African people exist in, within? You know what I'm saying? That informs the feelings we have between one another. First and foremost, we are colonized, and being colonized, it means there is a foreign domination of the entire people by this other force, for the political, social, and economic benefit of the colonizer. So what happens is that the resources of Africa are getting sucked by these like colonizers. They take expropriate all the value, and it means that this create contradictions amongst African people. We always in competition for this scarcity of these scarce resources. That's one. So obviously you're going to have such problems. For example, here in South Africa since 2008, you've had what they've termed as xenophobic attacks. I don't unite with that term. It's just horizontal violence, which is a response to the vertical violence from the oppressors and so forth. So you had people from Africans from here saying that we want Africans from Nigeria, Zimbabwe, and all so forth, so-called foreigners, to go back to where they come from. Why? They're taking our jobs. Why do you need jobs? Because you need to make a living. It's a question of resources. Where are the resources? They are taken by the colonizers. Working hand in glove with the neo-colonialists today. And also, in 1884 and 1885, Europeans, after like in the process of modifying the whole colonial slavery structures, the structures of the slave trade, to accommodate this colonialism, we now had them sitting in Berlin and like carving out like demarcations to separate African people, and then they erect these artificial borders to separate us. So when I say that I hate someone from Nigeria or and so forth, this is informed by the condition, something that has been imposed on us as African people. So we cannot speak about hate as if this is something that is innate amongst Africans. So if we have a movement, or we wage a struggle that overturns the colonialism, that means all the other problems that we're talking about of hate, all these other feelings gets resolved. So we should look at what the primary contradiction is that informs the other issues that we may be able to observe. That would be my
Wow.
response.
Yes, it makes a
Right.
lot of sense, Safari. It makes a lot of sense. I don't know. Have you heard it, Mr. Ethan? Um, do you do you have an answer for that? Do you think there is a reason beyond what Tafari just said concerning the hatred? Because it is obvious, man. Like, we cannot run away from the fact that we experience hate among ourselves. And sometimes a black person can even tell you that all the hate that I have ever received never even came from my race. It came from another race. And it's not that we are waging war to hate other race, but all that we're saying is that how come is it that we don't like each other at all? I understand perfectly well what the Teferi said, but then do you think there is any other thing that causes that we don't really like each other?
Thanks so much, Mr. Tafari. And as you were busy mentioning your thoughts, I believe that I totally 100% agree with your sentiments. For the purpose of this show, I'm going to take the antagonistic viewpoint. So what I will do is I'm going to be on the side of saying I disagree that Africans are colonialized still. I
Okay.
what I will say, and I'll say that mainly in the sense of South African Africans are not colonialized.
Okay.
I'll take that point and then I'll justify it. But just to introduce the stance of the position I'm going to sit on and how I'm going to express that going forward. I do, however, agree with you, Tafari, in regards to the fact that we have no longer become understanding towards our fellow man. But what I won't support is the fact that you can no longer have the same excuse after the time of political, administrative, legislative power being handed over into your hands as South Africans. In regards to where the xenophobic attacks and principal domination come in, I believe that it's been people who have been educated how to oppress others, and now oppression comes from people who look like you. That is corruption, not colonialism, because somebody will get a little bit of power and believe that this is now the instrument that gives them priority or precedence of preference into a governance system over somebody who needs to access basic services. So that has nothing to do with color. That has nothing to do with gender and whatever inequality, for lack of a better word. And I believe that what needs to take place is people need to be re-educated about what our systems are or should be. I believe that speaking speaking about people as resources is an injustice, and that is an education which is disassociated with whatever the African principle is. Africans are not workers, you know. They are not just workers, and to continue to want them to be workers is continuing the colonial system, which then we become our own slave drivers,
Mm.
and we then become the people who are enslaving ourselves. So I believe that we should not look at the relationships of Africans unifying within a system that does not even originate from themselves. And I believe that it's wrong for us to continue to use this excuse of colonialism. I believe that we are now at war with ourselves because we are trying to adapt to a system that was never created for us. So
Yes.
we should start creating our own systems and stop being lazy. Because the more we are going to advocate all these ideologies that come from uh, 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 disassociated lands, we will always continue to fight
Mm.
because these are not things connected to us. We'll fight forever. And it's never something that will get fixed. And that's, I think, what ultimately was wanted.
Mm.
Wow, that is is like really powerful. Like it is
Mhm.
powerful. There was something I said to somebody. I said I was giving an example between the Indian people and the blacks in South Africa. And I said the Indian people in South Africa, they actually came here as slaves. They came to farm sugar cane in the KZN, if I get my story right. And if we talk of the rich people in South Africa now, the Indians can be included as the richest people in South Africa. So in as much as all the wrong has been done to us, I am always on the side of we can talk about this thing the whole day, but at the end of the day, what is the responsibility we are taking as a people, right? Like if we are going to take a responsibility as a people that, okay, cool, the wrong has been done to us, so what next? How are we going to move forward from here to there? Because countries like Ghana got their independence almost 50 something years ago now. And if we look at countries like Ethiopia, they were never colonized by anybody. But why is it they are still not developed? They are still where they are. If we look at the 54 African countries, is can we say South Africa is developed? Because if we look at the 54 African countries, it's only South Africa that is like developed. But then if we look at the European countries, all of them are developed. So I think that should like give us a question that what are we not doing right? What are we not doing right? And if we continually talk about the colonial impact, the detrimental impact of the colonial regime on us, how long are we going to talk about it? and what are the things exactly that we should do once and for all to eradicate this. Because one of my friends told me about land. He said when land is given back to the people, that will be the first step of total freedom. And now the question is, when are people going to take their land? This is the question, because at the end of the day, people cannot continually talk about one thing over and over and over. We know very well that we were divided by the in 1884 to 1885, where they sat in Berlin and divided us and all of those things. We have known this thing, but what are we doing to unite ourselves so far as we have known the source of division? So, Mr. Ajamu, if you were to ask Mr. Tafari, or Mr. Tafari, do you want to answer Mr. Ethan before
Yeah,
I fix you? Yes.
yeah. Thank you. I wanna answer like both of you, cause yeah, actually, what comrade brother Ethan said is quite dangerous because one, I live in a township, right? Like that's what I'm at here,
Yes.
and what we're seeing, there's a lot of demoralization. Young people, like they are hopeless. You know, they feel hopeless. There are no jobs. I mean, 30 something percent unemployment. Youth unemployment is even worse. You know, so they have nowhere to go. Why? Because there is something called state power. You know, you can't just go and say, I'm grabbing this land, is mine. I'm gonna do farming there. You go do that, they're gonna send the state, the police. Will they'll remove you there. You know. So talking about a whole social system. We're not talking about people making bad decisions. Then you say, "Oh, he made a good decision." He made even. I mean, even some things that certain behaviors. Let's say drugs in our community. Drugs in our communities are not there because somehow we are inclined to drugs and so forth. This is part of the plan, the colonial plan. So when one thing we find is a lot of young people here in the township, they have been given this narrative that don't blame anyone. You are now free. 1994, you could vote. You voted for the ANC. Opportunities are open. And then what happens is that they keep fighting to make it within the system, and you will fail. You fail because the whole system is a capitalist system, which is by nature parasitic. It's a parasitic social system. What that means is that for you to be successful or for value to be appropriated by anyone, it must come at the expense of someone else. So for you to be rich, give a quick example. Patrice Motsepe, he is the richest black guy here in South Africa, and he owns mines, Harmony Mines. Patrice Motsepe, all the value that he has comes through people that I live with in the township here. They have to go to the mines and work. If they don't go there, Motsepe is not a billionaire. So you cannot be successful out of your own genius, and then you say this is innocent money and so forth, right? So all the townships you have in South Africa, for example, they became in effect from 1930s, especially after the Second Imperialist War, Second World War. You started having the Nationalist Party here came to power, and when they came to power, they believe this is their land. They invested in South Africa to develop South Africa to be what it is right now. So when you talk about South Africa is more developed than other countries, you're talking about the Dutch nationalists claiming South Africa as their own land. And in 1994, the ANC betrays African people. They don't take anything away from white people. Today, you saying that African people have a choice? We don't have a choice. White people are only 7% of the population, but they own more than 70% of the land. You see? So this whole thing is not a simple thing of saying you can decide to do this thing. Like I just want to say one more thing. I'm not a South African. I don't consider myself South African. Why? Because that's something imposed on me. South Africa was founded in 1910 through the Dutch, settler Dutch, and the British to resolve the contradictions between the two. They had wars, wars over this land, and then they established this thing called the Union of South Africa. So it took 84 years until 1994 when Mandela became the president for me to be a South African. I was never fighting for that. I'm an African. I identify with the entire continent. And one of the reasons Like in Ethiopia, when they say it was never colonized and so forth, Ethiopia can never be free or flourish unless the entire Africa is free. That's what Kwame Nkrumah said in 1957. And today we are still debating questions of, we can never make it within the system because the whole system was born through the attack on Africa, enslaving African people, colonizing us. That's how capitalism works. So for us to succeed, we have to destroy capitalism, establish a new unified Africa. Then we can talk about it's your fault and whatever. You cannot blame anyone. We are still colonized even today, you know. That's what it is. Thank
Wow.
you.
That is
Ryan.
that is like really powerful. Ethan, do you wanna answer him, or Ajamu have a question for you? But then this is like wow, 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 wow. Um, yeah,
I've written down his points, so brother Ajamo can go, and then I can go in.
yeah.
Unless brother
Before
Ajamo, do you want me
before
to respond first?
before brother Ajamu goes,
No, he can
let's
go,
say shout out
Ethan.
to let's say shout
Okay.
out to those people who are watching us across the globe. Tara is watching us from United States of America. Elijah Toby is a young man that is contesting for president from Liberia. So he's so much keen in this program. He has been watching all through. So and Tabitha is watching here, and a lot of you guys who are watching, please let us just know where you are watching from. We really appreciate you. In fact, we are clapping for you for being, yeah, for streaming. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You think you can go on, my brother?
Okay. Um. All right. Wow, that's powerful, and I guess this is the first time we have a for and opposing view, but
Yeah.
I think it's good. So let's let it go. So basically, my brother, and you are saying the exact things that I love to actually debate about, because the perspective of saying that you live in the township and there are no jobs, it's governed by state power, the unemployment rate is high. I believe that these are conditionings which we have allowed to be spoken into us by people who look like us. I believe we are personally responsible for the inaction within our communities, because when we had the opportunity to take a stance, we did not take the stance. If you would look back, I'm not going too far back, but I'm looking at the stage where there was the TRC commission, right? And you had the Jews, which were put in a similar position as us, which is why you have gentlemen like Comrade Joe Slovo setting up relationships with now Comrade Nelson Mandela, right? To form the SACP. Then you understand certain things where you look at how Hillbrow started, and Houghton, and the eventual development of what Santon became, and you begin to understand that you've got the founding parties which founded the party of the Native African Congress, um, on the founding principles of saying that we will educate our people, and we will principally give them, let them understand law, right? So then you've got, and then the one which is the religious side. Then they meet a German American who then creates a relationship to say, this is how you set up your communities. Don't make the fight about wanting to stand opposed to what somebody wants to exclude you from. Create the capacity and the strength within your own communities to be able to take the fight within what your communities can garner, and build uplifting and upstanding communities within that own personal capacity, not depending on what somebody else is building out there. Then there's another conversation before I continue from there, which goes, the the Afrikaners did not then want to fight us for what we were fighting against the British for, because that was the colonial rule, and that was the colonial power. They were fighting because there was a sellout from what the natives were doing and creating relationships with that colonial power, and they were like, these people are they are going to eventually make sure that we all have nothing because of the way that they are so easily bought. You understand? Now, I stand to be corrected in that definition because it's not really a story I like to entertain, because I'd rather build than try and justify where there's impotence. But going back to where the unemployment rate is, if we are understanding that where your definition of saying Petrus Motsepe is the richest man in South Africa, if people do not work, then his riches fail. I believe that in context, it becomes a contradiction because of the fact that you're saying if people don't work, one man's riches will be affected. Whereby, if people don't work, their ability to provide for their families will be affected. Their abilities to actually ensure that the lay of the land to be worked on will be affected. Now, then comes the question of ownership. Now, in order to say you're owning the utility of the land. So it's not because of the conversation of land usage or land ownership which is in question. It becomes the question of what is the purpose of the land and what is the usage, the utility need for for occupying that land space. It becomes the conversation of saying, if you have the resources and the capacity to be able to work that land, then you inherently should be using it. There's nobody who was ever born with a title deed in their hand saying they own this land. You cannot say that the principles that govern your access to a certain commodity or to a certain utility of a space is based on the declaration of somebody who did not come here born with that right. So if you're saying that the legislation then enables you to access that, learn the legislation so you can access it because you want to participate in the system. You cannot participate in a system conditionally to the fact of saying, no, this is where my benefit is, or this is where the factor favors me in access to this, but you have no means to actually secure the utility of that land. You have no means to the maintenance of that land. Hence why the debate becomes very sensitive, because you cannot say you are going to recommission something that was not given to the person. And this is not me justifying the reason why they have it. It's just me saying, let us look at ways and relationships where we can come together on skills to say, this is how we transfer or barter within the constructs of this, and saying, this is how we can impact legislation. Let's participate on those things. But how do we participate in those things if the people representing us are the exact people imprisoning us in these conditions of a colonialist system? So what needs to happen? We would then need to demolish the entire thing. So saying 1994 opportunities were birthed is absolute nonsense, because we know that's not true. The ideology of saying that yes, we could have had access to actual uh, uh, beneficiary opportunities could have been a possibility prior to the arrangements of saying somebody had agreed to certain clauses that were not made public until somebody was sitting on Al Jazeera telling us a speech about a sunset clause. You understand? So you cannot say, and knowing the information that you cannot say that in this context. You cannot look around your township areas, understanding that there's a freedom charter that says all slums will be demolished and housing will be redeveloped for people. You cannot say that opportunities were birthed in 1994 if somebody is saying that a municipality like Alexandra, or an area like Alexandra, has been given 1.2 billion rand, and after 3 days, after 10 days, that money is all gone. You cannot say that in the same context. You cannot say that what's this? South Africa is appropriated by the minority of 7% owning 70% of its economic resources, when 70% of its economic resources are committed to them because of 70% of the infrastructure that enables that economic performance is actually enabled by them. If you are saying that the only thing that Africans are good for, and I'm saying Africans for the inhabitants' sake, is that we must only be part of the labor force, that is a destructive statement, because you cannot say our definition of access should just be because we are born in a land. James Baldwin educates to say because of the fact that a slave is now born in London, right?
mm,
You cannot
mm,
say that now that slave is entitled to the lay of the land because of his origin. His
mm,
origin of his family comes from slavery, but him landing up there does not make him a citizen of that land. But then they say to him, "Where are you from?" He says,
mm,
"I'm from Birmingham." And then he says, "Where's your father from?" "My father's from what's that island in Jamaica?"
mm.
uh, 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 uh,
Caribbean island.
the Caribbean islands or West
Yeah.
Indies, right?
Mm,
And they
mm,
ask his father, "Where's his father from?" And his father says, "From Congo." And then his
mm,
father is like, "Where's your father from?" It's like, "From Germany." Then where are they from? Because inherently, what happens in the Ice Age? If you want to go back, you cannot only go back to where it's convenient to say, "No, I'm not going to call myself South African because before that, this is where whatever was." But in a later stage of history, in an earlier stage of history, there was nobody inhabiting here other than the Khoisan. You understand? There was nobody here other than the Khoisan. Then you need to give an inheritable deed title to the Khoisan who inhabited the land before Zulus came, before Tswanas came, before Pedis came, before people from Mozambique came, etc., etc., so on and so forth. Then, if you want to go there, then you take it even earlier back, where you say, what happened in the Ice Age? Because even the Russians consider this place as their home. Because at one point, at the highest at the highest peak of the Ice Age, this was Cape Point was the only place that supported life. So then at the world's reset, everybody had to eventually come here. And then when all of that stuff when all of that ice melted, then people migrated and started to explore different lands. So if you want to say your capacity to be able to transform a people comes from somebody enabling you to access their system that is working for them. And just because you cannot get in, instead of creating your own, that now makes the system jaded. I think that's nonsense.
oh.
And the rest is-
Yeah, guys, it is getting tough in here. Like the information that we getting in here, and viewers across the world, and I know for sure that we are having fun because you have fun when you are having this much education presented to you, and this is what TLAD is all about. Ethan, thank you so much for that information, and I know that Tafari is just biting his hand to reply to you, like to reply to you. Everything that you've just put there, like as informative as it is, I am sure that definitely we have one or two things to say. But Mr. Ajamu, do you think you have one thing to say before Tafari answers Ethan?
Well, I mean, I agree with the self hate part of it.
Yes.
So in other words, there's a lot of Africans worldwide that are engaging in self hate, and I do know that that is partly because of a lack of education. Because when I became educated on who I am, that self hate disappeared on its own. I didn't. It was common sense. Like, oh, I'm reading this, I'm checking this out, I'm learning about this, I understand this, so therefore, there's no need to be hating of myself. Now, the society that I live in teaches you indirectly to hate yourself. So it indirectly teaches you over the years, black is not right. you know, African is bad, people live in the jungle, blah blah blah, ray. So it took me to say, is that true? Let me see if that's really true. All these negative things that I'm hearing all my life. Then when I researched it, I realized it was not true. Matter of fact, the most jungle in the world is actually in South America, not in Africa. And then I went further, and my question is, you guys talk about poverty in South Africa. Then I'm trying to figure out. I'm in America, and people of African descent are still at the bottom. They're in poverty, even though we're in the richest country in the world. I go to England, they're in poverty. Go to France, they're in poverty. Go to Germany, they're in poverty. Go in Italy, they're in poverty. Even though they left so-called poverty, they're in poverty in these so-called first world countries or whatever you want to call them.
Yes.
So then you have to say, well, how could that be? And even Brazil, which has a boatload of people who are African, they're in poverty in the favelas. How are they in the favelas? How are they in the favelas when they make up the majority of the population?
Wow.
You know, so that's a question that comes up in my mind, and so forth. I agree with Ethan. You do got to destroy the whole system. I've advocated that for years. Get rid of it. Create your own. But everyone looks at me and says, I don't need to create my own. We don't need to create our own. We already got something in place. No, that's not working. That doesn't work. I don't care how much people you put in there. It don't work. So I agree with Ethan. Create a whole entire system. The last two things I'm going to say is that land is so important. Without land, you have no wealth, zero wealth. No land, no wealth. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you got billions of dollars. If you don't own land, you ain't got no wealth, because everything's based off of the land. You got to put an airport on land. You got to put a bank on land. You got to put schools on land. You got to put a farm on land. You got to put everything on land, pretty much. Unless you're going to farm the ocean. I guess you could do that. I don't know. I mean, farm the moon. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just putting some stuff out there for y'all. And then the second thing besides land is you got to control the resources. So I think and I'm just throwing this out there. Oil, for an example, the Arabians, the Saudi Arabians, they will not sell their oil at a certain price because they got control over their oil, if that makes sense. Now, they might be pressured to sell it at a certain price because of other nations or what have you, but they can still stand up a little bit and say, you know what? Nah, we're not going to do it. All right, we're going to do it at this price. If you're going to buy it from us, you're going to get it from this price. So I'm just saying, I'm just using that as an example. So land resources, build a whole new entire system, self-hate, lack of education, and so forth.
Yes. So thank you so much, Brother Ajamo. Mr. Tafari, before you answer Ethan, I will also want to stress on the question that Ajamo posed there. Now, wherever you go, and this is not talking down on my African people, but wherever you go, the people of my pigmentation, they are the poorest. So even on our continent, we are still the poorest. And now the question is, you spoke about how hard it is to get into the system. And now, do you think it's possible to create a system? And if we create a system, do we love ourselves to a level that we can even believe in our system? These are the questions. I don't know. But then answer Ethan, then we'll continue.
Okay. Thanks for that contribution. On what Brother Ajamo says in regards to owning the land and owning the resources, I believe that if we have to look in history, people of our pigment, let me use your classification, King Fazan. People of our pigment have created things like the television, fellow Farnsworth. People of our pigment have created the telephone. You understand what I'm saying? People have created X-ray machines. They've created so much equipment, but chemically in our mind frames, we do not trust the things that come from our lands. That saying of saying a king is never realized in his own town until he leaves and is
Mm.
praised by others. That
Yeah.
saying is mainly for people of our pigment. You
Mm.
understand? It is
Mm.
only for people like us that we're like, no, we must be skeptical because this guy's coming with something that should be coming from somebody from another color. Do you understand what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
I
Wow.
understand. I understand what Brother Tafari is saying in regards to the colonial seed that was planted in our minds when we were oppressed, when we
Mm.
were having those 500 years of slavery, which is why people get pissed off when Kanye West says, at one given point in time, the slave should have said, "Do you know what? There's 10 of us and there's one of him." You
Mm.
understand? But
Yeah.
where it comes to is saying this the injustice of the evolution of the African is in his consciousness. That is it. To create a system is easy. We can create a
Okay.
system overnight, time and time and time over again. But the person who's going to destroy that system because of how they've psychologically programmed every single African is that he must be the one to destroy it.
Hmm. Like,
That's true.
mm, mm.
That's true. Tafari,
Yeah,
are you there?
yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Loud
we
and
can hear
clear.
you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually worried, because actually, like we were saying earlier, that you can use facts to tell a lie. That's one of the examples that Chairman O'Malley once used, to say you can see a Klansman, the KKK, right, helping an old lady, black lady, with her groceries, and they say, "Oh, look at the Klansmen helping a black woman." That's who they are. They help people, but that's not who they are. So you're telling a fact, but then you're using a fact to tell a lie. Like most of the things that comrade, my brother, even mentioned, they are true, but then they don't like define, or they don't explain why we are in the condition that we're in right now. And I just want to mention just a few things, because you said quite a number of things here. Some of them I know they were in response to what I was saying. I also agree, like, not just simply agree for the sake of the debate. This is what I do. I function as someone who intends work every morning to get the system destroyed. Not simply the system, but also South Africa itself. South Africa must be destroyed. So when you mention things such as that, well, I can still call myself South African because how far back do I go in whatever. It's not about how far back you go, because we're talking about how human beings today relate, how we relate. We live, exist under a social system called capitalism, and capitalism has its genesis some 500 years ago, since Portugal first snatched those couple of African people around Sierra Leone in 1413, if I'm not mistaken, 1411 or something in the 1400s. This is what the process that initiated what you call capitalism. Capitalism was born through the enslavement of African people. This is what gave birth to the Industrial Revolution in Britain, and through the requirement for raw materials, resources, and whatever, they modified those structures to create what we now know as colonialism. But even the slavery, we still refer to it as colonial slavery. So this is what created, consolidated the European nation as well. Europe, before enslaving African people, did not identify themselves as a nation. They had what they call warring tribes, the Visigoths, the Vandals, and whatever. They actually defined themselves in relation to one another. As soon as they attacked the world and built a world economy based on white power, then they developed a sense of sameness, a consciousness that informs them to say that I am white, I'm the most beautiful thing in the world, more civilized than whatever. This is coming from what from this whole process of attacking Africa. So while they construct this identity about themselves, they also construct an identity for us as African people. One of those things is what constructing these, dividing us in terms of the borders. So I'm saying South Africa was born as a negation of Africa, of my identity as an African people. It was an attack on me. The whole thing about the ice age and whatever, going through all those periods, that was just a natural occurrence. They, like, but it has nothing. You cannot compare that with Europeans coming to Africa and dispossessing us, taking our land, and then creating these borders and telling you that. Let me just use this quick example. If you take it, if you look at in the Tropic of Capricorn, where you have around Limpopo, you have people there that speak the Chivenda language. There are greater affinities between the Chivenda language and the Shishona language, which is in Zimbabwe. But the person who speaks Chivenda will say, I'm a South African. The one who's in Zimbabwe, they will say, I'm a Zimbabwean. Therefore, we are different. But if you look at Chivenda and a language in far south, it's Xhosa. There are less affinities compared to Chivenda and Shishona. But then I cannot identify with the Shona person because why? He's a Zimbabwean. And we're even closer in terms of distance as well. But because the white man created this demarcation, I have to identify myself according to that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? So African people are one, even in terms of language. For example, when the missionaries came to Africa, developing the Bible and whatever, they had to translate that King James version to African languages. They couldn't figure out where is the demarcation, where is uh, the how do we differentiate these languages? It was just a continuous thing to prove that it is even possible that African people did not even have the concept of this language and that language and so forth. I want to say something about this. When Brother Ethan says here in Southern Africa it was the Khoisan and so forth, that is just colonial garbage. Why am I saying that? Because you are saying they were Khoisan only because when the Dutch, Jan van Riebeeck, when they came here, they found in the Cape the people that they now refer as the Khoisan. But then African people moved around the continent season to season, depending. Sometimes you would have droughts here, they moved to another region. Communities broke up apart, some integrated and so forth. So that movement was there all the time. It's just that when the Dutch came here, they found a specific people there. And now, because we have this South African framework, now we're going to say South Africa belongs to the Khoisan. But there was no South Africa before the British and the Dutch came here, so we cannot go according to that. So I'm really concerned about a number of things as well. There's something that we call class struggle. I don't identify simply as black and then I take responsibility for people like the ANC do, what people like the ANC do. Whatever the ANC does, they do it based on their class interest. We don't have the same class. For example, the ANC, when you talk about the ANC being born in 1912, the ANC was born as a sellout organization of the African petty bourgeoisie, the chiefs, all the guys that become the elite. It's an organization of the elite from inception. It was born on the back of the defeat of the Bambata Rebellion of 1906, because before organizations such as the ANC were founded, what you had in Africa is resistance, like traditional anti-colonial resistance. Like for example, in the 1800s, we fought through people like Shaka Zulu, people such as Musheshwe, people such as Sikukuni, Makado. Those were traditional anti-colonial wars. They were finally defeated in 1906. And when that happened, now you have these people that went to missionary schools. They have the white education, and then they form these political organizations such as the ANC. So if the ANC took power in 1994, you can't say black people took power. It is a class, the African petty bourgeoisie. That's why in our party, the African Socialist Party, we are a party of the African working class, the masses of black people that are in the townships. And I'm worried about the idea that black people have a choice. You have a choice to just wake up in the morning and say I want to be free, and then you just become free and say it's simple as that. Like when you say the social, what kind of social system do we want, and why can't we have it? You can't just simply say today let's construct a social system, and then the next day we're going to have a meeting, and then kumbaya, we have a social system. It's part of the struggle. Imperialism isn't trained. You have to fight. You have to organize, apply tactics and strategies. So that's why we even say it's a protracted struggle. You cannot just wake up and then have this liberation. That's why we are having, part of the problem is that ideologically we have ideological divisions. I come with my political theory, my philosophy of African internationalism. Someone else comes with their own philosophy and so forth. So we need to, like, now right now we are having battling it out in terms of this debate. We resolve those kind of contradictions. It's part of the struggle. You cannot expect the people to just resolve everything and then they wake up and be free the next day. We are oppressed, and this thing has a history. Trace the history. You cannot just start the movie in the middle and say, here you are free and so forth. Why are you not acting a certain way? It's a whole social system. We are fighting against a whole social system. So I just want to highlight those things, and I know they can. There's a better way to explain these things. If we can just be able to lay them out, and then I just have a problem with the idea of blaming the people, the victim. African people, the African working class are the victim, and the oppressor, the white man, is the perpetrator. But we always make excuses for the colonizer and blame the victim.
You see, before anybody else answers you, I think this is the reason why we having discussions like this, Tafari. We having discussions
Mm,
like this to find a way forward. If we look at the comments now,
mm,
Tara Stafford, from United States of America, the comment that she is putting down, she is saying that it's time Africa stand up. But now the question is, a divided house will never win any battle. If you are agreeing on a certain thing and I am disagreeing on a certain thing, and I always believe that the greatest formula to keep people into slavery forever is to plant a division among them. When people are divided, that you will continually rule over them. Now the question remains, we are not going to agree on everything as people in order to move forward. But what are those like the biggest factor? What is the biggest uniting factor that if we crack it, our unity will be sure? Because I believe that when our unity is sure as a continent, we will be unstoppable. This I believe it. This I believe it. So do you think
mm.
there is any factor, that a defining factor, that will help us as African people, even though we are not going to agree on everything, we agree on one thing, and that one thing will be stronger than any other disagreement that we have as a people. Because trust me, the division that we have as African people is real. And with that division, we are not going to get anywhere. We will keep talking about it over and over and over. There will be people that will be fighting for it, there will be people that will be fighting against it. So, what is that factor, Mr. Ethan? What is that factor that you think that if we crack it, we have what it takes to move forward?
May I request that answered be that be answered by brother Tafari.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, brother Ethan. Because I do want to answer that question. And
Yes.
the concept, the idea that we are just simply a house or a family is also problematic. We have this basic conception of African people as simply brothers, a family. You just have these differences to resolve and whatever. And then we look at other people in the world. We look at them in terms of human beings in the world that have like interest, material interest, and those material interests, they make lead to certain clashes in society. Like, societies that does have splits and things like that. There's a history that informs why we have all these kind of contradictions. But in terms of the the idea of African unity, just look at simply in terms of Kwame Nkrumah. I'm echoing somewhere in Africa, but if you look at Kwame Nkrumah, who came to to become the president or prime minister of Ghana in 1957. Immediately a year later, he called for a conference of anti-colonial forces to come there and chart the way forward in terms of Africa, saying that we cannot be free until we fight collectively. You had people like Patrice Mumba, Sobukwe, and so forth. They attended that conference. And then later on, seeing that the anti-colonial struggle is maturing, it's advancing, the colonialists saw that the whole method of direct rule in Africa cannot work anymore. They saw it not working anymore. You know, you have anti-colonial resistance all over the world. That's why we say the 1960s was a revolutionary period. We had 1959 Cuba, 1950s you have Mao in Kenya, you have Algeria, and then later on in the 60s the Black Power movement. So they saw that there was even I think one of the prime minister, the British prime minister, came to Cape Town and he made a speech called "The Wind of Change" and whatever. So it was a wake up call for all the imperialists, and they had to devise this method of that we now know as neocolonialism. And what is neocolonialism? Neocolonialism is identifying people that have an opposing interest to the general population of African people. And this become the African petty bourgeoisie, the black middle class. They have an interest, they have a stake within the system. They want to be like the white man. They see white people owning all the property, the mansions and whatever, and they want to have that. And they are willing to have that at the expense of the African working class, the majority, the mass of the people. So what they did is to sabotage Kwame Nkrumah. They initiated this thing called the Organization of African Unity, 1963, and May 25th. That's when they established this thing. And the role of the OAU was actually to codify, to legitimize the borders, to say that, for example, that's why they saying that in the OAU you had two blocks and whatever, the Monrovia, the Casablanca, and so forth. But what was really happening there is that all the neo-colonialists, the black petty bourgeoisie, they wanted to maintain the borders, they wanted to maintain the capital, colonial capitalist social system at the expense of the masses of the African working class. And all the genuine revolutionaries, all the genuine forces, for example, Kwame Nkrumah, 1966, gets overthrown, and then later on he dies. 1960 or 61, Patrice Lumumba, anti-colonial force, gets murdered. Or and then you come here in South Africa, Steve Biko, Robert Sobukwe gets murdered. You go in the 1980s, Thomas Sankara, all the genuine forces, they get murdered. Then what do? They leave us with all the puppets, you know, either puppet or just treacherous forces that are loyal to the imperialists. Like here in 1994, the ANC, not an anti-colonial organization. It's a neo-colonial organization. That's why we're in the mess that we're in right now. You go to Congo, they kill Lumumba, they put Mobutu there, and right now it's chaos all over Congo. And look at Congo, for example. For us to even be communicating right now, all these divided devices for them to function, the heat needs to be contained by a mineral called coltan. More than 70% of the coltan in the world is mined in Congo. How is it mined? They create all the chaos. This is what imperialism does. They kill all the genuine revolutionary forces. They impose puppet leaders that they can work with at the expense of the masses. And they use at the force of the gun, state power. They force African people into starvation. They force us to work into the mines there just for a bowl of rice, and then they go and supply all these electronic devices, companies, and so forth. So you see that what I'm trying to say is that African people are colonized. We are still colonized. It's not like we were once colonized, but the form of colonialism that we experience that is right now is what we call neo-colonialism. But it still serves the same purpose: extraction of raw materials in Africa, natural resources, exploitation of the African labor. So the whole entire system rests on the backs of African people. That's why we are oppressed all over the world, because that's how the social system works. So I just want to make that point. It's not about Africans coming together and solving the problem. It's about a social system that we need to fight. Right.
Mm. Yeah, Mr. Ajamu, you can go on. I see you
Yeah,
wanna.
yeah. I was gonna say, I agree with Mr. I agree with Tafari, to a certain extent, and I'm not saying what he said was. I'm not devaluing it in any means.
Mm,
Everything he said is valid. It's
mm,
the truth. It's honesty, and I appreciate that. Um, he is correct. There is a middle class here in the U.S. They do the same thing. Trust me, I'm considered middle class because of the education that I acquired, the amount of wealth that I guess have, and then the amount of say that I have within the society. However, I'm one of those guys that are like, oh, what happened to him? Why isn't
mm,
he bourgeoisie? He's not a bourgeoisie. He's wearing African clothes every day. He's talking about uniting Africa. He's talking about black is beautiful, black is power. He's talking about all these things. How did that happen? How did that happen in the belly of the beast? How? How did O'Malley come
mm,
into existence? He's from the US.
mm,
He's from the US, just like me. How is a brother like him and a brother like me in this place that is some of the it's the most immoral country and probably in the world, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's just based off of what I see.
mm,
Okay, so how do we how do we come into existence? That's the question. And I'm starting to realize that the answer that I'm looking for is not with King Fazan. It's not with Ethan. It's not with Tafari. It's within me. It's actually within me. How did I get to this point? And then, by the way, I'm teaching my son. So now he doesn't have the same exact views, but he has the overall view, which will propel him forward and he can, like, block all this stuff out of the way, so to speak. I'm using sports as an analogy.
mm,
That's a whole nother thing. I don't even want to talk about sports. But the answer is within me, I think. And I'm not saying me to be arrogant or to be egotistical, because I'm not like that. What I'm saying is, how did I come about in this place? Because technically, I'm not supposed to be on this call with y'all.
mm,
Because by design, I'm supposed to be thinking a whole nother way. How did I come to this conclusion? How? Where I don't see a bunch of other brothers from the U.S. Talking this way. It's a small percentage. Trust me. I'm looking for them. I'm searching for them. I don't find them. Rarely. And when I do find another brother, he talking some silliness. Okay? I mean, literally, like some craziness. I'll be like, man, you don't want to unite? You don't want to come together? You don't want to start something for yourself? You don't want me and you? Can we come together and build something for ourselves? So I'm just saying. So I know I got to this point through education, not European education. I got to clarify that. Not the stuff that I learned in college and all this other garbage. This was a personal education, so to speak. It was me. It was me educating myself, me checking everything out, me analyzing everything. It was me. Not me egotistically, not me, from that standpoint. But I'm saying, like, it was only me, because nobody else could teach it to me, because everybody else was teaching me to be this Negro or this other thing that this country develops over time.
mm,
I see it all the time. Believe me, I'm in the school system. I see it all the time. I see people in the 12th grade and they already got a whacked out mentality. They don't even know who. If you call them an African, they'll start laughing at you. Like, I'm not no African. I'm an American. You're like, what? Like, what? What? All right, okay, that's okay. I didn't ask your nationality. I asked who are you? Who are you? Where did you really come from? And then they'd be looking at you. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that there were certain books that I read. All right, I'm putting it out there. There were certain books that I read. There were certain authors that I read. There were certain people that I read about. Tafari mentioned a lot of them. I read about Nkrumah. I read about Lumumba. I've read about Sankara. Sankara was betrayed by a guy that was like his right-hand man. His right-hand man. He was betrayed. The French were able to pay him. He betrayed Sankara. And I read all those things. I read all of those things. All of those things. And I'm at the point now, I'm like, man, that cannot happen again. So I think the answer is maybe within us, or maybe some people got to be more educated than others, or some people got to like realize like is this system really really bad?
Yeah, yeah.
I had to look at that. Is the US, Britain, all these places, are they really really bad? And then I started doing my research and I'm like, whoa, I wouldn't do that. Whoa, I wouldn't put myself in that position. Whoa, I wouldn't make that decision. Whoa. And I keep saying whoa, whoa, whoa. And then after a while, I'm like, man, something's not right here. And believe me, I was in the military. I saw it firsthand. I saw things that were not justified, that was not morally correct. I saw it in law enforcement. I worked law enforcement for 6 years. All right. And now I'm a teacher. Why did I go through those changes? It's because there was something directing me. There was something directing me. There was something that I read. There was these great people that came before us. It's not just words. It ain't just words, man. They implemented something powerful, because how do you explain me? Even other people say, man, we can't explain you, brother. You don't make sense. You in America, but you look and sound like you're supposed to be from Africa, like in the deepest part of it. But you in America, and then people get pissed. Excuse my language. They get upset because I be in their board meetings and stuff.
With your African clothes on.
Talking about, oh, I don't celebrate that holiday. I don't know what that is. Talking about, I don't eat that. I don't want that. You see what I'm saying? That's deep, y'all. I mean, I'm not trying to put no, I'm not trying to put the spotlight on me, because it's not on me. I'm just trying to figure out how did I get here? How did I get here? And then how can I perpetuate that to a large amount of people, so they can love themselves too? I was telling King Fazan, there was a discussion one time about bleaching. I'm like, man, I'm trying to look for something to make myself darker. And people are like, no, you can't be darker. You can't be. I'm like, no, I'm actually, I feel that way. I feel it in my heart and my soul. I feel that way. I don't know how, but I know how. I'm just saying. Anyway, go on. I'm just running around in circles. It's
Brother Ajam, I understand very well when we talk about issues like this and know how deep you can go. And Mr. Tafari says something very profound that I will want him to elaborate on it more. He said, we want to be like them. We want to live in mansions like them. We want to drive big cars like them. So it is easy for us to sell our own in order to get what they have. It's easy for us to really want to be like them. But then the question I want to ask Tafari is, sitting there, like right now that you are sitting there, sir, before men and God, wouldn't you love a good life? A life that, a nice house, a nice car, and all of those things. Wouldn't you love all of those stuff? And do you think it is possible for me? I've never seen R1,000,000 in my life. If I see it today, I should turn it down because of my brother. Will you be able to do that? For the sake of unity, for the sake of promotion of the continent, will you be able to do that? Because the reason why I'm asking these questions, the reason why I'm asking these questions is this: like, we are really looking for a way forward. We are not just having this show. We are looking for ways forward in order to move from here. And the only way that we can move forward is when we are sincere with ourselves. We are not just talking, but whatever we are talking is from here. So the question I ask you is, wouldn't you want to have that kind of luxurious life that everybody can die in order to have it for the sake of your people?
Let me answer this the question this way. First of all, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I would want.
Yes.
Whether I would want to have a mansion, a car, a big car, or whatever. If I would want to have those things at the expense of my people. It means that's how this whole social system has affected me. It has affected me in such a way that I begin to value these things that will be worthless eventually, because the people are going to take it anyway. You know what I'm saying? You have a big mention like Ramaphosa here, the puppet president. People are going to take that mention anyway. So if you have the long view, if you begin to be informed, one, if you
Yeah.
have the long view and understand what's happening in the world, the whole social system is experiencing crisis. The United States is crumbling. Britain, Brexit, that's why they're breaking, like it's breaking apart. Why is it breaking apart? Europe, like I said initially, the European nation was consolidated through the attack on Africa. The fact that they had to go to Africa, to the Americas, and everywhere. They had to have meetings, they had to have forums and whatever conferences to unite and say we're gonna go out and unite. Like, let me just give you a quick example. When Spain and Portugal, which was like neighbors or cousins or something, when they went out to attack the world, they started having a contradiction of which part of the world belongs to who. And they went to the Pope. They went to the Pope, and when they went to the Pope says, Spain, you're gonna have the West, and then Portugal, you're gonna have the East. You see what I'm saying? So when that's the European nation being consolidated. But right now, because people are resisting all over the world, in Venezuela, we're taking back what belongs to us. In the Middle East, people, there's wars everywhere because people are refusing to be controlled by the West, by imperialism. So the world is changing. If you have a stake within this system, you should know that that's going to be short-lived very soon. But besides that, I have love for my people. I love my people more than anything. I would never
Okay.
betray African people, no matter what.
Okay.
I don't care how
Okay.
much they would promise me. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah.
There's nothing that this system can promise me. Not 10 billion, not whatever. I could just take that money quickly and then turn it over to the revolution for us to get the guns, get something. You know what I'm saying? Just to organize and overthrow the ruling class. That's how we should start
But
thinking. And
but
we cannot. I just want to say one more thing, Africa.
yeah. Yeah.
It's wrong to assume this whole idea of human nature, to
Mm.
assume that human beings naturally, they're just selfish and they just want to satisfy their own personal needs and they don't care about anyone else. That's how what capitalism and the ruling class suggest to us. But we see it in the township. People share even like salt. They share like the smallest things. You know what I'm saying? So there is no such a thing as
But
like
but let me
you know.
let me interrupt you there about the township.
Mm,
They share everything, but what happened when one of them becomes rich? What happened? What's the first thing they do? They leave the township. So it
yeah,
comes
of course.
to, yeah, they leave the township. So were they really sharing because they want to share, or they just saying, okay, cool, since we don't have, let us share what we don't have with each other.
Mm. Let me be short with that one, Africa, because I don't want to overtake the show, right? Um,
Eh,
let me go back to say it doesn't matter whether they were doing it because they have that heart. I wasn't even suggesting that human beings by nature they want to share and whatever. What I know is
yes,
that everyone is interested in life. You are
exactly.
interested in life, and what happens with this social system is that some people have their lives at the expense of other people. That's what Europeans are anyway. And then even within the African nation, the African petty bourgeoisie, the middle class, they do live at the expense of the general population, the African working class. So he's saying the masses of the people collectively, we have a material interest, and that material interest will push people more and more to seek for collective solutions or have organizations that are going to overthrow this whole social system, regardless of what each individual feels, whether they can betray people or whatever. Collectively, we're going to move in such a way that we even hold one another accountable. You know what I'm saying? In the townships, so it's not about what one person feels or what decisions they would make. It's about how we organize ourselves and how we move. Right.
That's powerful. So, Mr. Ethan, do you have anything to say?
Yes. Okay. So, just in preparation to Brother Tafari's response, I just have a few things. So he was saying that is it possible to create a system overnight? He said no. I say yes. The reason why I say yes is because the detriment of the African is in his own hands. It's not in anyone's hands. The unspoken truth is that no one actually cares. People are going about their lives on a daily basis. They have their needs, their resources, and their needs taken care of. They don't give a damn. The only people who care are the people who are excluded, and that's us. So if we do not make changes and create the systems and the infrastructure that we need to use to make our lives better, it will never get better. Nobody must, I believe that no one is responsible to create the means for us to actually live better lives. There are over 76 different townships that exist within the South African frame, and I believe that we need to start embracing the economic structures that exist within these townships, whether informal or formalized, and we need to start supporting them ourselves. What needs to start changing is that on the click button next to your laptop, people should click what's happening in Kim Kardashian's life less, and they should start clicking about books that are released by African authors more. And then
Hmm.
we will start to see a change. But as long
Okay.
as popular culture is leading in the destructiveness of promoting destructive behavior within our societies. There was a word you said which I hate. I hate a lot. Like I actually loathe that word. Is revolutionary. I really, really, really hate that word because not necessarily as a person, but I believe that word has just been bastardized. It's similar to the word liberation. I believe that liberation has also been overused and it's lost its definition. I also go back to another point that you made in regards to you can use facts to tell a lie, which I believe is very true. But the facts that hurt the most are the facts that put us into our own responsibility to be our own change, which we are not doing. So ultimately, the only one that will never be a lie is that we are always, when you wake up in the morning, you are responsible cognitively and consciously to take responsibility for the direction that your life is going. The third thing you said is that South Africa must be destroyed. The third point that I recognize that you said is South Africa must be destroyed. I believe that that is backward thinking, and that South Africa cannot be destroyed because starting from scratch is not going to necessarily help. But in regards to a people understanding that they have nothing, if we can accept where we live, how we live, what we live for means absolutely nothing as a collective, we can start from a base level where everybody will be put in a particular position that they respect the next person. So I believe humanities need to be re-educated within our society, and our indigenous knowledge systems need to take precedence. So I believe overall, other than the government, which needs to take priority in terms of a leading role within society, our house of traditional leaders needs to start taking even more of a stronger stance with leading our people in this country. Then you said, how do human beings relate? That would then take care of that. I believe constructively, if we were to be able to embrace the different cultural tribes within our country, and start re-educating people about these indigenous natives, we will then begin to promote a culture of relatability and reliability amongst one another. Um, Better said than done, I understand, but also another contradiction is you saying we can't say that the land belongs to the Khoisan because, in accordance to history, it stated that no, the Dutch are the storytellers and they're the ones that found them here. That I believe is a contradictory statement because there's no evidence of this. We could be wrong, I could be wrong, but there's a book that the Russians have wrote that they declare South Africa as their heritage point. So you would also have to dispute them if you want to say South Africa belongs to who? Because like you made an example about the vendors because of them speaking Shona, where you in late earlier times than apartheid, it was Muna Mutapa. So I believe that it begins to lose value if we're going to say this place belongs to a particular person. I believe now, because of where we've evolved to, our class struggle should be our class struggle of survival. Our natural survival is dependent on a few basic needs: water, healthcare, uh, social security, um, food, which is agriculture and all of that, and then I would say education, right? Those five basic needs. If we are in control of the origin of the information from each of these things, because now I believe we've overlooked an even more important factor, which now we are dealing with GMOs, genetically modified organics, which
Yeah.
are food. We're not
Yeah.
even control of what Monsanto is busy importing to us, but
Mm.
we have so much agriculture that we are committing to so many other different lands. We're not even promoting people having backyard gardens. For instance, the most immediate thing, like planting vegetables, those things should be in every person's household. In Zimbabwe, everybody is farming in the back of their house. You cannot tell me that you are looking for so many things that are so far away, but for the personal responsibility of somebody saying, "Let me learn how to plant one seed of a sugar bean. Let me plant one seed of maize." Yes, in some places it's done. I'm not gonna say it can't be done because even when I walk to the informal settlement there in Kliptown. Kliptown is the oldest, the oldest township. Yet today, it still does not have a high school.
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying, my brother? So you can't tell me that there's so many people that have been educated. There's buildings there. You cannot. There's garages there. You know, but you cannot tell me that not one person thought of actually putting a high school there. There's Charlotte Matek, Mom Charlotte Mateke's house there. There's a hospital in her name. The house where she comes from is still the way it looked like when she passed away or when she was a child. So
Wow.
I understand we're a bit all over the place because the question was, is it possible for
Yeah.
Africans to unite?
Yes.
You said Africans need to unite based on they can't unite because it would need them to unite based on one thing. I don't think it needs to be based on one thing, but it needs to be initiated by one acceptance, which the acceptance must be we have failed ourselves. That is one fact that we cannot lie to ourselves about. We
Ethan,
are
don't you think?
responsible. Wait,
Don't you
wait,
think?
wait. I'm
Yes.
not finished. I'm only halfway. The
Uh,
responsibility in the African is for
uh,
himself or
uh,
herself to take total responsibility that we have failed ourselves and we have failed each other and we have failed because we do not plan. We like to complain, but don't plan. We don't take action on the plans to change our own lives. We like uh, 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 enablement. We like to be sold dreams, and therefore, we are opening ourselves to always be taken advantage of and punished. And when we go and riot and burn down the same institutions, we are the fools who suffer, because then we must pay the tax or we must pay the extra bus fare. So we are the foolish fools that continue to destroy more and more ourselves and continue to take ourselves back, which is what we must accept. Then Africans, and I'm not saying Africans as black people, I'm saying Africans, those people born here, those people born who identify with the principles of the origin of the people, of the natives here, right? The natives of the land, which is the dark continent. If people can identify with that classification to say there's actually nothing we've done, and now we need to start coming together. We've got an intercontinental free trade agreement that enables Africans to trade amongst each other with so many incentives, that how many kids are being educated about? How many products can we create relationships of exchange with different African countries where we're still trying to access the world? But I'm not even trying to support the same, pardon my French, the same neighbor that is right next to me. But instead of supporting his business, I'm going to create an exact duplicate so that I can compete with him. So we'll have 25 spaza shops in less than a 10-kilometer radius from one another, which is foolishness. It's foolishness. Then we start talking about economic revitalization within the townships, but we're not understanding that the informal economy is generating more than to $10 billion a year all over Africa. Where's that money being banked? You're telling me that nobody has thought of a plan of saying, you know what, if we can just stop hating Baba, whoever, who's got just a little bit of an access into financial markets, then he trades this thing for us. Instead, we want to create pyramid schemes and rob each other. Instead of that, we'll create a church. We create a church, we rob everybody, and then we go bank in Switzerland. Now you can't bank in Switzerland now because now the law has changed. Can't bank in Mauritius anymore because they've corrupted it until there's nothing left. The education system, Miss Webster, Merriam Webster, whatever, Spanban Oxford, those are the books that we are reading. But those things all come from Prussia. Nobody even knows any of the traditional hero stories other than Shaka Zulu. That should even tell you, like, wow, was it only Shaka Zulu? Like, that's as far back. Even as much as we can create selective collective memory of saying, oh, there's Sankara, there's whatever, Kangas Khan, whatever. Is that all we know? You're talking about a planet that's over 10 billion years old. Now, these are the only people we can mention, right? I'm almost there. I'm almost finished with my thing. Then you talked about ANC as classes of the working force, all of that stuff, nonsense. Because, my brother, honestly speaking, dog, you cannot tell me that people who don't even know how to get along are still your leaders. There's a saying that goes, if you believe there's a fool in power, it says much about the people who voted for them. By now, it should have gotten into people's heads that yes, you're voting for a government, right? You're voting for a government to do what? This government must collect your taxes, build roads, it must borrow money, establish courts, make and enforce laws, charter banks and corporations, spend money for the general welfare, take private property for public purposes with just compensation. but it says it's a government which does not generate funds for itself. So that means Saudi is not supposed to make profit. Am I correct? That's what it's saying. This is
mm,
your definition of state power. Because in the first thing that you said that um, we are living with people who are using state power and state resources to then self enrich themselves. You mentioned Cyril Ramaphosa. Before Cyril Ramaphosa came in, everybody was singing his praises. It always becomes us sacrificing the narrative to our own people using the mediums of an alternative power. Like, these are not the systems that we created. Television, we're not in control of the narrative that is put on that teleprompter. But yet you see the same story promoted throughout the whole different news feed. There will always be one centralized power, and that's the person writing the story. The other thing you said, the other thing you said was it takes tactics and strategies. What tactics and strategies have been here if somebody before there was liberation, inverted commas, wrote a sunset clause which said after 20 years we're going to destroy everything you've built and we're going to take back power. I don't really know the full definition of what that agreement was, but all I know is I could never. My grandfather, before he passed away, he always used to educate me, and he was also a comrade in the struggle. He always used to educate me and say, if you continue to depend on waiting for somebody to liberate you, you'll be waiting forever because once that person reaches comfort, you no longer matter. So if you're going to preach and say, yes, if I'm offered $1 million, if would I sell my brother for a luxurious life? You'll never be able to answer that question in the position where you're sitting now. It is best to always reserve comment till you are faced with the conditions of that implement for you to respond to a question like that. Because you do not understand the journey that it takes to get to that type of point, which makes a person change his mind. Nobody goes into with the intent of saying, I'm going to be the same nursery kid who's going to grow up to become a rapist. I'm going to be the same nursery kid who grow up to become a serial killer. I'm going to become the same nursery kid who was born, who had a mother and a father, or who didn't, or who doesn't know those things. And I'm going to go and become a corrupt politician. And I'm going to go and kill kids for tenders, for doing weekend bashes. And I'm going to stop this tender because somebody's servicing a tender of printing books. So I'm going to make sure that there's no computer digitized system of distributing books because I've got the contract for printing books. No one grows up from a child and says they're going to do that. The ideas are not even in their head. But once they reach that seat, there's something that happens. And there was a gentleman in the music business, Lance Stir, who says it all happens in the walk. The change happens when you get to the position, your walk changes, your talk changes. You think they were all born talking like that? Comrade. You think they were all born talking like that? No. There was a position of frame of mind that got them to start thinking in the way they think. And it's in this, in what do they say, political correctness or
mm,
whatever. And then you sit in those meetings and it's redundant. They keep on programming you with the same information. And you're thinking, just because you're coming with these ideologies, until you get shut up and complacent to a particular point where now you start to sound like them. And you just think, no, let me blend in. Let me blend in until, I'm cooked and I'm sharing the same ideals. And then once I'm there, I'll make changes. Then your brother starts to say, brother Tafari, now you are changing. Now you are starting to talk like them. You're starting to dress like them. No, it's a cover. It's a cover, comrades. No. Now you're like, this guy. Now he's changed now. And the thing is, you won't see it. You won't
yeah,
see it until you are so warm into that suit. You just be like, now. Why must I go back and fetch others? They are fine where they are. Then you talked about we can't use ideological theories that are placed above natural needs. I believe that is wrong levels of thinking, because just like what Baba Credo said, who shared the same ideologies as the Hindus, right? Baba Credo educates that what happens in the origin of time, or the origin of consciousness or thought, which is the same thing Maharishi Mahesh Yogi taught, where he says that there's a place where in the origin of thought is a unified field. So this is where there's no thought at all. There's no thought, there's no activity, there's no perspective, there's no analytics, there's nothing. It then just bases the fact that the conversation emits from yourself. You are not, there's nothing imposed onto you. So I believe that natural needs need to take priority over ideological theories. I believe people need to remember what their natural needs are, because having a job is not a natural need. It's a conditional need, and it's conditional to the environment for you to be able to provide for yourself, because you're dependent on a system. It has, your natural needs do not need a job. They don't need validation. They don't need content, because you don't need a freaking cell phone. You don't need a television. So if we start creating things that are not dependent by what somebody is telling us we need, because we are so consumed by a digital sphere that we don't even have no clue what the hell we are doing. We are talking to a computer. Right now we're having a conversation, but I'm not talking to you. The natural me is talking to a device. But that is the reality. We do not, we're no more engaging with the human. So when we need to recognize that humanity, we can't. So what we do is we start shouting at the TV and start shouting at the politician, we start shouting at the soccer player on the television, and we're like, pass the ball, cross. But we are effecting no change. So everybody's a specialist of nothing. And
Mm.
that's me say. And my last one is, when you say we like to blame, and I quote you by saying, blaming the victim and the white man is the perpetrator. I believe this is the most nonsense. And my brother, this is no disrespect towards you, but I believe our problems are way beyond color. They have transcended the color a long time ago, because at the previous riot, it wasn't white police shooting black students. It was black police shooting black students. But we're not ready to have that conversation.
Uh,
You, Ethan,
Ethan, are you done?
yeah,
Or you
what riot
still
was
have more
that?
points?
Can you bring me up to speed a little bit? Was that in?
So so
Yeah,
there
it was.
was there's this institution called NSFAS. Let me just see the full definition of what is it, NSFAS. NSFAS is the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. So there was this riot. Let me just get my facts straight. Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, as Ethan is
Reason.
setting that on online.
Hmm.
I think Tafari can go ahead. I know you have something to say, because we are really running out of
Yeah.
time here. Yeah, those who
I
have been
found it.
Yeah.
saying
I found it. I'll just be
okay.
very short. I'll just be short. So
Yeah.
basically, what happened is, oh, it was for student debt, right?
Mm.
So let me just go to a part. Okay, why don't universities just cancel the debt and let students learn? The tertiary funding model is broken, and students have long been excluded due to their inability to pay their debts. Bauer outlined three challenges. The subsidies per student that the state pays universities have been declining for more than a decade. There's no national funding program for students who don't qualify for NASFAS, which is the Student Financial Aid Scheme, capped at a household income of 350,000 Rand. And there have been repeated cuts to research funding. So there was a riot that took place at the University of Witwatersrand, and a gentleman was shot who was not even a student. He was coming back from work, and students were shot with rubber bullets, and they were protesting, and they were like, no, we're not going to um, uh, relinquish our right to protest, and etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually it got very bad, and it got violent, and everybody was taking back to that mentality of June 16, 1976, where the students had the youth student uprising. Um, like there was a celebrity who came in whose name is Lasizwe, who then started a movement where he was able to raise over 2 million rand just on using his social media, which was good, and they were able to effect change. And then literally noise around the movement just died down, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's basically what happened. That's what took place.
No, but you was saying that in the actual uprising or whatever was going on, there were, I guess, people of African descent who were part of the police that were shooting at
Yeah,
other brothers and
mhm,
sisters and so forth.
yeah. Even at close range, there's
Yeah,
even.
you see that?
I'll send you a
You see that
picture on
here?
WhatsApp.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
shot them up at close range. But I'm just saying, like, somebody, this is probably a kid who probably even comes from that person's hometown. You
Mm.
know what I mean? But
Right.
the fact to understand that this kid is fighting because I can't access education. You're from the same background as me. You should understand that it's quite difficult. And now they're
Right.
saying, like, don't cover, I don't qualify for the actual grant because, and it's not a grant that we're making available for them.
Right.
Get that
Yeah.
as well.
I see what you're
There's
saying.
no, there's no,
Well,
there's no, there's no actual place where black business has said, here's an institution we're creating for you guys so that you guys can have access to school. There's a national grant that everybody gets access to $350, which is similar to the one in the UK, but it's different, right? They get access to 350 rand, and this 350 rand is for them, and they can do whatever they want. It's not monitored, so it's a
right.
non-monetary grant, non-taxable grant. Not even $50 of that grant is portioned to the child when he's born till until he gets to like 18 and maybe be able to pay for that child's tertiary
Now,
education.
yeah,
You know?
well, yeah, I get you, and I agree. My the nonprofit that we started on this side are we were definitely involved in stuff like that, as far as education for our people and making it accessible and available. So I see what you're saying. The point I was going to make was that when I was in law enforcement and I sat down with myself and thought about things, the one thing that led me away from law enforcement here in the U.S. was the fact that I thought about it. I said, what if they create a law, right, that is against my people, but yet I got to uphold it? And then I was like, wait a minute, they already got laws that are against my people. You know what I'm saying? And I still got to uphold it because of the position that I'm in. And that would let me out of that's what the next day I went to my supervisor. I said, I quit. She looked at me like, what? You quit? Are you out of your mind? Come here. We got to sit down and talk. I said, there's no talking. I quit. And within hours, I went downtown to in Orlando. I went to the education office and I said, I want to be a teacher. And guess where I'm at now? So I'm just saying, like, what you're saying is deep, man. Like, there are people on each side, but they're the same people. And it's like, the bottom line is the person got to make that decision. I had to make the decision. Am I going to continue with the salary and the badge and the gun and all this other garbage? Or am I going to really put my foot down? And I put my foot down. And there was a lot of people against me till this day. Even my wife. My wife was like, are you out of your mind? How are we going to pay these bills? My son was crying. Oh, Dad, what we going to do now? What we going to do now? So we're going to do what we always done. The point I'm trying to make, brothers and sisters, is that You make a good point, Ethan. At the end of the day, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Whose side you gonna be on? You gonna be on the side of your brothers and sisters in the movement and the struggle, like to Tafari, all of that, Tafari, King, whatever. Are we gonna be united, or are we gonna make a decision that's gonna make us comfortable?
You
All
see,
So
right.
yeah,
we could go over and over and over talking about this, because when Ethan was talking, I have so many questions that were crossing my mind. Ethan, do you know that information is a very personal thing? Like information is very personal. You'll be surprised that the simplest things that you think somebody should know, they sincerely don't know, right? When we talk of example, you gave example of the free trade that is happening right now within the African countries. How many of us even know that? How many of
but
the people staying in
We
a
know
in
that.
a in township know that?
Mm.
So now, if you say that no, it's all depending on what you can do, you can stand up and do. I uh i am not condoning any form of lacking behind as a human being, but what I always know is that in as much as we can say we have choices, and I was teaching my student on Friday, and we were talking about this thing, choice, and I said I'm gonna make an example. I took two chairs, I put in front. I call a student and I asked her, which of the chairs do you want to sit? She said that chair. I said awesome. Then I asked the class, do you know what I've just done to this person? And nobody knew. I said I have taken away the choice of standing. I took away the choice of standing. She does not have a choice
mm,
to stand. She has a
powerful,
choice to sit.
powerful.
You understand? So
Powerful.
in as much as you can look at this thing, there are people, they don't know what is going on. It was on
Mm.
this show I was telling the
Wow,
listener something. I
that
said,
is so deep. Yo,
yeah,
yo, yo.
I said they must. My grandmother told me something before she left to be with the Lord. She told me, she said there are three categories of people on earth. There are people who make things happen. There are people who watch things happen. And there are people who don't even know what the hell is going on.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? And now, if we look at our story as Africans, it's not that we wanna blame, but then we are in the position whereby most of us don't even know what is going on. How can we even start? And who
Let,
put us there?
let me share this other thing. Like, right now, I've had the privilege of joining one of our economic chambers, right? Uh, the Soweto and Surrounding Industries Councils and Chambers Forum, right? Which is focused on empowering and creating economic opportunities within the township, and then using the township revitalization bill um, to enable certain economic opportunities, which I advise everybody to read. If you haven't had an opportunity to read it, make sure you read it. You can also check out the SS S SSICCF
I think,
Facebook page.
can you type it there, because many
Okay,
people wanna
cool.
read.
I posted the link of the place, so you can check it out, which is the Soweto Surroundings Industries Council and Chambers Forum, which is focusing on the revitalization and rebuilding of the township economy. If you look at all of the neighboring countries, for instance, what Africans can do is every country has each country national living within that country. If there was a store that represented each one of those nationals, you would no longer need to have xenophobia, because you're benefiting from a trade relation that immediately benefits your community because those people are staying in your community, for instance. So if people like jollof rice, You would then import jollof rice and have a jollof rice restaurant. In Abuja, you would have people who are making bunny chows. In Egypt, you would have people who are making Mozambique fish, for instance.
Yeah.
Just on food.
Yeah, yeah. In fact,
Hmm.
we were actually planning a UNAV cookout that we spoke about that. I think Ajam, you were in the meeting. We spoke
Hmm.
about yeah, trying to get the African food together and dance and whatsoever happen once in a while
I
or
wanna be
whatever.
there. I love
Yeah,
food. I
yeah.
love to eat.
So, Mr. Tafari, are you still there?
Yeah, he's. I would like to
Yes,
Yeah, I'm
hear
still
what
here.
he has to say.
Yeah, I'm still alive. Yeah, I just want to say that I am a revolutionary,
yeah.
and I advocate for revolution,
Mm,
regardless of how it has been bastardized or whatever. I advocate for revolution. And when
yes.
I say South Africa must be destroyed and will be destroyed, I meant it. That's what's gonna happen. Because we're fighting for unified Africa. And Africa will be free and Africa will be united, not through these African Union like initiatives of the free trade, whatever. That has nothing to do with the African working class who is oppressed, depressed, and like just existing under the most constraining conditions ever. So it doesn't matter what the African petty bourgeoisie in government do. What matters is the people on the ground. The African working class, the masses of the people, are the ones that are going to organize themselves. And the attitude that we take towards the people is not the one that brother Eden has. We don't have that kind of attitude towards the people. You know what I'm saying? We understand like that people are oppressed, and the oppression goes a long way. Like you said, it's not about I made this choice or that choice. So if I am informed about something, I am Tafari, I know something about the fact that you are oppressed, and we have to do things such as economic structures in the township and so forth. Yes, we should do that, but we're not trying to preserve the township. We're doing that in the process in what we call in our party dual and contending power to build the muscle of the African working class in the township. But ultimately, the struggle is to take everything. The people, the masses must take all the means of production, all the resources, all the factories, all the mines must belong to the people. And that's what's going to happen eventually. So we're not simply trying to say, black people do something for yourselves and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we're going to do something for ourselves. But that's not the end goal. The end goal is the total liberation of Africa under the leadership of the African working class. All the damn borders that separate us are going to go. You don't even have to entertain the questions of, oh, the Somalians must be represented, the Zimbabweans must be represented. We are one African people, one Africa. That's who we are, and we're gonna recognize ourselves in that way. And in terms of practice, our party, the African People's Realist Party, is actually making this a reality. We are a party that exists in Europe, in London, Britain. We are there in Britain, in France. We are there. We are there in West Africa, like I said, Tanzania, Kenya. We are there in Southern Africa. We are there in the USA. Everywhere. Actually, our party has this concept called dual and contending power, which is a concept introduced by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And dual and contending power has to do with us building our own economic capacity right now within the social system, but then not to coexist with the social system. But then in the process of destroying capitalism, what is capitalism? Capitalism is a social system whereby production is socialized. People go and work. You know, in the townships, when we wake up in the morning, people are going to the buses, to the trains, they work. Black people are only, even the concept of being lazy, blah, 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 and all the negative stuff that's said about our people is just capitalism. stuff. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to care and stuff. This is an attack on the people. So one thing that we understand about the African working class, constantly under attack, always shamed. You are dating, always ashamed that you are not educated. Also, our people are constantly under attack. So what we do as a class representing the African working class, we're gonna be in the townships. We're gonna work with the people patiently, forcefully, by all means. And then the African petty bourgeoisie, together with their own masters, the capitalist imperialist masters, they are going to be destroyed. So I just want to encourage all the genuine forces, the revolutionaries out there, to go and look up the APSP, uhuru.org. We have more than 50 institutions of economic development. We have a furniture store. We have a clothing store. And all of these things exist within the African community. Why do we do this thing? We do that because we believe in the people. The people can be inspired by that. They want to join in the program. They join in the program. They learn. They learn new ideologies. Because they're informed by television. They see people like Somizi Mhlongo on TV. They see Ramaphosa. That's their role model, right? Those are the people that are prescribed for us. And then you want to be like those people. Sometimes you realize that you can't be like them because all the odds are against you. That's how the system is like. So we're saying that everyone that believes in the people, those that believe in the people, they will organize with the people, will have the programs with the people, recognizing the fact that we are oppressed, we are colonized, and neocolonialism, white power in blackface. That's what Barack Hussein Obama in the US represented. That's what Cyril Ramaphosa represents here. That's what Mandela represented. These are the sellouts that go out there with the same pigmentation as us, but they represent a different interest. So we're saying the African working class, the black people on the ground, we can organize ourselves and we don't need anyone's approval. We don't need anyone to come and say, yeah, you're right, you can think, well, you can do it or you can't do it. Doesn't matter. Even on this debate, it doesn't matter what we say. The people, eventually, the conditions will propel them to do what, to solve the problems, because everyone has to survive. So they will not allow themselves to be destroyed by the system. And those of us that have declared ourselves to be revolutionaries, to be African patriots, we are going to organize to go into the township, have the programs, win the mass of the people, and destroy South Africa, destroy all these countries on the continent, destroy capitalism, and establish a new socialist society under the leadership of the African working class. All the means of production, they will be owned by the people. So that's what we're fighting for. On all black people across the world will benefit from this. That's how Africa can be able to defend a black person in the US, defend a black person in Brazil, in France, wherever we are, is through a powerful Africa. If Africa is powerful, and all these treacherous leaders have been eliminated, and then we have African people in power governing ourselves, then black people will know what dignity is, and all these negative stuff that's being said about our people uh, will be relevant. That's all I want to say. Go and look up the Uhuru movement, the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman Omali Eshitela, and then you will know what I'm talking about. I'm not just talking; it's already in the process. That's one of the problems. Sometimes we talk in an abstract kind of way. We are abstract. We're just talking about African unity, this, African division, this, black people, this, and blah, 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 blah. But in practice, if you engage with the people, if you go and talk to the people, have a program with the people, you know that black people are not naturally inept, or somehow just don't want to be free, or somehow we are self-sabotaging and whatever. We are not all of those things. We want to be free, but there's a system. There's a South Africa, there's a state that is against us. They use all sorts of things, media, the schooling. You go to the curriculum, everything is against us. So what do we need to do? We need to organize ourselves. We need to fight. We need to get all the people that are interested in black people being free and get them on the program, and then we can make this thing happen. So we just want to say all power to the people, and the people will be free. Right.
I'm telling you, this we have part two, because I I really want to ask you questions, Mr. Tafari, because when you made mention of some of the sellout, I was like, what? Who did we just call? But then it's fine. we will love to have part two of this discussion because we've been discussing almost 3 hours now. So
Yeah.
uh, people who have been watching from the start, I think uh, they will really they are fed with powerful information now, and we will leave this thing to another time. And when we come again, we will be so happy if we are to have you guys back on the show to continue here, because I see a lot of comments from the comment session, and many people want to know more, they want to hear more. And I'm telling you something, I have learned a lot, and this is what this show is all about: educating Africans. And now most people who are watching, I'm sure they are also sharing it to their friends to be part of this powerful conversation that we have here. Mr. Tafari, thank you very much for coming. We do appreciate you. And Mr. Ethan, thank you very much for coming. We so much appreciate each and every one of you. And before we go, we just want you guys to say one or two things for those guys who have been streaming from the start, that since we started. They would just want to hear one or two words of encouragement from you guys. Let's start with Ethan.
Yeah. Thank you so much, King Fazan, Brother Ajamo, for having me on TLAD. I think it's a great, phenomenal platform, and I'm always watching from the sidelines, and I'm glad to see how it's growing. I love the new intro videos and how you're putting content out there. I can't wait to see more content that's coming out from you guys. And yeah, man, brother Ajamo, we gotta get you to come through to South Africa one of these days, man. We really
I'm
need
already.
to work. We really need to work on that, and then we can see what we do inside. I think it's gonna be phenomenal, brother Tafari. Thank you so much for the mental jousting. I really enjoyed it. I haven't had such a good opponent in a long time, and I feel that you're very worthy of the position you stand. I
Yeah,
commend you for the brave journey. Anybody who wants to see change in the areas where we grow up in, I will always support and never be afraid to reach out at any times. We might have different of views, but I believe Africans can unite in those areas. So if it's ever a resource or something you need and I can provide it, never feel short or shy to reach out and holler back. King Fazim will obviously share my details with you, and then we can chat or whatever offline and see how we can find common ground.
thank you very much, Ethan. Yes, Mr. Tafari.
Thank you, brother Ajo and brother Ajamu, and brother Ethan. Um, someone is there someone trying to tell me right now?
Oh no,
Uh oh.
what just happened there?
Feature production, all the resources, all the
Yeah.
all the minds,
But I believe
people,
Africans
and that's
can
what's gonna
unite
happen eventually.
in those areas. So if it's sorry.
Yeah. So that
Um,
first, what just happened?
Feature production, all the resources, all the all the minds, but I believe. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't believe that someone just tried to call me right now. I can't believe that. But it's okay. I just want to say that yeah, I wanted to say just to congratulate you, brothers. For this program. It's a very dynamic show, and I wish you all the best. And I know the reason you have this program is for the love that you have for Africa and for the people. So that in itself, it means a lot. It means that you do believe in the people, and I just want to encourage all the people out there, the people who are watching, and African people, that and Europeans and all the enemies of Africa, the Chinese and everyone else. Like right now in Libya, you have the Russians, the Turks and whatever. Everyone wants a piece of Africa. Actually, everyone has a plan for Africa, an African plan, except African people. You know what I'm saying? So we should be able to plan for Africa. So I just want to say, whatever you're doing, continue doing what you're doing. But the best thing that anyone can do in the interest of African people is to join the African People's Socialist Party. Go to the APSP, uhuru.org, check that out. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. Just go out and join and just follow up if you want to learn more, and then you can always do that. So yeah, uhuru.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Tafari. We wish to have you one more time on our show. We do appreciate your presence. Yeah. So, Mr. Ajamu.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna make it short. First of all, I would like to thank Ethan, Tafari, and of course you, brother King Fazin. And the only thing I have to say is that each and every person listening has a duty to unite, to have the courage to unite. It's gonna take a lot. It's gonna be hard in some cases. In some cases, it's very easy. You have to make that determination. But at the end of the day, I love all brothers. I hear all kind of different sides or different viewpoints and so forth. But at the end of the day, we're one. We're together. We have to maintain that. We have to move forward somehow, some way. So I'm asking everyone, please find some courage to unite, no matter what. I have differences with people in my own family, but yet we're still united as a family. All right. So I'm just giving you. I have differences with my mother, with my father. I still love them, but you get the point I'm trying to make. So we got to have the courage to come together. Yeah, I agree. Mr. Safari needs to come back on. I'm pretty sure you guys have some questions and stuff. I do like his zeal. I do appreciate his trying to organize and do things and all of that. I'm like, wow, this was a really good show.
Yeah, it was. It was.
And we'll see everybody next week. So everybody next week, spread the news, share the video, share the video.
Yeah, yeah, share the video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming. Gaduna from United States, Haza, South Africa, Tabitha, our publicity manager in the United New African Family, Lerna from Kenya, Tara from United States of America, Edin from Ethiopia, and yo, the list is just too much. I can't finish, guys. Even if I don't call your name, know that we deeply appreciate your presence here. We will see you next week, the same time and the same place.
Zile 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 yo alır gel mile 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 fe mai zile 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 yo alır gel mile 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 fe mai